I froze in the kitchen, my heart hammering like it wanted to escape my chest. Through the cracked door to the living room, I caught my husband, Aaron, leaning close to his sister, whispering words that made my stomach turn cold. "Tonight I'll finally tell her that I'm—" His voice trailed off, but the meaning hit me like a slap. I gripped the counter, knuckles white, as a wave of betrayal swept over me. The very man I trusted, the man I loved, had secrets so deep he couldn't even tell me himself. I wanted to scream, to confront him right there, but my mind raced. How long had this been going on? My chest tightened, my vision blurred with tears, and yet I couldn't move. I felt paralyzed by shock, anger, and fear. If you're ready to follow my story to the very end and see how I survived this betrayal and turn the tables, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. You won't want to miss a single chapter. I fled to the bedroom, slamming the door behind me, trying to steady my shaking hands. Every heartbeat thumped like a drum, echoing my thoughts. What was he planning? Why me? How long had he been lying? Aaron's footsteps creaked on the floor, stopping just outside the door. "You okay in there?" he called, his voice smooth, but there was a tension underneath it that made my skin crawl. I didn't answer. Not yet. I needed space to breathe, to think. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "He's hiding more than you know." I sank onto the bed, my mind spinning. Every memory flashed like lightning. Laughs, late-night talks, the way he held me close. Was it all a lie? I felt my world crumble, and I realized that nothing would ever be the same. Some secrets, I decided, are dangerous. But revenge must be smart, patient. I whispered to myself, trembling, I will not be humiliated. I will rise above this. Later that night, I watched from the window as Aaron and his sister disappeared into the shadows of the garden, whispering, plotting. Every movement of theirs felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I had always believed in trust, and now I was forced to face that even the people closest could betray me. I opened the drawer of my bedside table and pulled out the small notebook I had kept for years. My plan needed clarity. Every detail of my life was about to be analyzed, every mistake remembered, but not for self-blame, for strategy. I would uncover every secret, expose every lie, and reclaim my life. My hands shook as I wrote the first line. They think I am weak. They are wrong. This was the first night of my transformation. If you want to see how I turned betrayal into triumph, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe now. Every twist in this story is designed to shock and inspire you. The next morning, Aaron acted as if nothing had happened. He kissed me on the forehead, whispered something about breakfast, and left for work, his smile effortless. But I noticed it, the twitch in his lips, the faint tremor in his hand when he grabbed the car keys. I followed him discreetly, keeping to the shadows. He stopped at a cafe I had never noticed, met someone there, and exchanged a small package. My chest tightened. This was bigger than I had imagined. He wasn't just lying about one thing. This was a network of deception, carefully constructed. I felt my pulse surge with both fear and exhilaration. I knew then that exposing him would not just be about revenge, it would be about survival. And maybe, just maybe, about reclaiming my dignity and the love I had once believed was real. By evening, I had gathered enough clues to know there was a pattern, a series of calculated moves by Aaron and his sister. They assumed I was oblivious, but every whisper, every glance, every seemingly innocent gesture added to the puzzle I was piecing together. I sat in the dark, reviewing photos, text messages, and notes. Every revelation stung, but the anger transformed into determination. I will not be a victim. I will be the storm they never see coming. The night ended with a decision. Tomorrow, I confront the first layer of their lies. But this confrontation would be just the beginning. My life was about to change forever. The next morning, I acted normal, greeting Aaron with a warm smile, pretending I hadn't seen anything the night before. Inside, my mind raced like wildfire. I needed answers, but I also needed him to underestimate me. At work, I quietly checked my phone every few minutes. A message popped up from an unknown number. Check the mailbox after 6 p.m. My pulse quickened. Was this another clue or a trap? I felt the thrill of the chase, even though the fear still gnawed at my stomach. By evening, I slipped out quietly and made my way to the mailbox. Inside was a small envelope with Aaron's handwriting. My hands trembled as I tore it open. Inside were pictures, him, in secret meetings, laughing with people I didn't recognize. It was proof that he had been living a double life. I sank onto the curb, overwhelmed with shock and anger. But as I studied the pictures, a plan began to form. If I moved carefully, I could gather everything, expose him, and reclaim my life without losing myself in the process. Tomorrow, I decided I would confront the first lie, but only just enough to shake him. The game had begun. I watched him from across the street the next day. Aaron was meeting someone new, handing over envelopes, talking in hushed tones. Every detail was a thread I needed to follow. I snapped pictures from a distance, careful not to be noticed. My heart thumped as I realized the extent of his deception. And yet, beneath the rage, there was a strange exhilaration. I had underestimated my own courage until now. I had to stay calm, precise, and patient. At dinner, Aaron smiled at me, completely unaware of what I knew. He dropped casual remarks about handling business and keeping secrets safe, thinking it was just normal conversation. I sipped my wine, nodding politely, all the while calculating my next move. The evening ended with him leaning close to whisper something in my ear. I froze, letting him think he had me fooled. But I had already decided the next 48 hours would change everything. Late that night, I dug deeper. Every message, every photo, every casual comment he had ever made started making sense. The puzzle of his betrayal was forming into a clear, dangerous picture. I felt a mixture of fear and thrill. Fear because I realized how much he had hidden from me. Thrill because I now held the keys to his secrets. And revenge, I could almost taste it. Not cruel, but firm, calculated, satisfying. Then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed again. He trusts no one. Neither should you. I looked around my empty apartment, the silence pressing down on me. Someone was watching, or someone knew I was on to him. I clenched my fists and whispered, "They think they can control me. They are wrong." Tomorrow, I would test the first lie. And this time, I would push him just enough to reveal the truth. The following afternoon, I confronted Aaron casually, asking about a small inconsistency in his story. His eyes flickered, and for a second, I saw panic. But he covered it quickly, with a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. I smiled sweetly, hiding the storm inside me. "You know," I said, "it's funny how little things can tell the truth." He blinked, clearly unsure what I knew. The thrill of control coursed through me, but I didn't stop there. I asked more questions, each one carefully crafted to push him further into revealing himself. By the end of the conversation, I had enough to know the first layer of his lies. He left for work that evening, unaware that I had taken screenshots, made notes, and traced connections. My revenge wouldn't be immediate, but it would be inevitable, and he would never see it coming. That night, I sat in the dark, reviewing everything I had gathered. The photos, messages, and meetings created a web of deception that Aaron had carefully built. And now, it was all mine to untangle and expose. I felt my anger simmer into a cool, strategic determination. I wasn't just fighting for justice. I was fighting for my dignity, my life, my sanity. The pieces were falling into place, and soon he would have no room to hide. Then, I paused and looked at the camera, as if speaking to everyone who might follow my journey. If you want to see how I take back my life and turn betrayal into power, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe now. You won't believe what's coming next. Tomorrow, the first trap would be set, and Aaron would begin to stumble. The next morning, I noticed Aaron acting differently. He glanced over his shoulder more often, hesitated before answering calls, and avoided eye contact. My heart raced, not with fear, but with the thrill of knowing my plan was working. I decided to push him just a little further. At breakfast, I mentioned a random detail from one of the photos I'd found. His fork trembled slightly in his hand, and I caught the tiniest flicker of panic in his eyes. "Funny how things come up, isn't it?" I said casually, sipping my coffee. He nodded, unsure, but I could feel the tension radiating off him. Later, I checked my phone. Another message appeared. "He knows nothing. Keep going." Someone was clearly on my side, or at least monitoring him. I couldn't let this opportunity slip. By evening, I had laid the groundwork for a bigger revelation. A small confrontation tomorrow would force him to make a mistake. And when he did, I would be ready with everything. The game had officially begun, and there was no turning back. I spent the day reviewing his schedule, cross-referencing his calls and meetings. Every detail, no matter how small, was another weapon in my hands. I even noticed a pattern in his late-night outings, always after pretending to work late. By nightfall, I had a plan. I would confront him subtly, planting doubt in his mind without him realizing the depth of my knowledge. Then, I would wait for the cracks to appear. When he returned home, I was sitting calmly on the couch, scrolling my phone as if nothing had happened. He froze for a second when he saw me, then forced a smile. "I heard from your office today," I began, casually dropping a tiny hint of what I had discovered. His eyes widened ever so slightly. That was all I needed. By the time he went to bed, I had the first confession written in my notebook, not from words, but from his actions. And tomorrow, I would escalate further. The next morning, I set my trap. I left a seemingly innocent email open on my laptop, the kind he might peek at while making coffee. The message contained a question only someone involved in his secret life could answer. Sure enough, Aaron glanced at it, and his face changed. I watched quietly from the corner, pretending to read a book. His fingers fumbled, and a nervous laugh escaped him. Later, I casually asked about the email, pretending to be curious. "Oh, that? Just something at work," he said quickly, avoiding my gaze. I smiled inwardly. He was slipping, and every small panic was proof I was winning. By evening, I had recorded subtle admissions, nothing explicit, just enough to piece together his secrets. And in the quiet of my apartment, I whispered to myself, "Soon, he will wish he never lied." The thrill of control was intoxicating. I felt alive, powerful, and ready for the next twist. That night, I received another mysterious message. Check the hidden drawer. My pulse quickened. There was always one more secret, one more clue. I opened the drawer carefully, finding a small folder labeled with Aaron's initials. Inside were letters, receipts, and notes that confirmed my suspicions. Aaron had been hiding money, meetings, and conversations from me for months. Each paper was another nail in his secret life. I felt a surge of satisfaction. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was about reclaiming my life, exposing the truth, and making sure he could never manipulate me again. I sat back, phone in hand, and addressed my audience. If you think this is shocking, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe. You won't want to miss what I do next. By morning, I would confront him with just enough knowledge to unsettle him, to force him to reveal even more. The web of lies was about to unravel. The following day, I decided to test him further. I mentioned one of the hidden accounts casually over breakfast, watching his reaction. He froze, his hand hovering over his cup. "Funny how things appear out of nowhere, isn't it?" I said, smiling. His face paled. That's when I knew he underestimated me. He thought I was still in the dark. By mid-afternoon, I had gathered more evidence from his careless mistakes. Each slip-up was another puzzle piece falling into place, and the thrill of discovery made me almost giddy. That evening, I prepared for a more direct confrontation. This time, he wouldn't be able to lie his way out. And when he tried, I would be ready with every proof I had collected. The tension was unbearable, but the stakes were higher than ever. And as I closed the blinds and turned off the lights, I whispered, "Tomorrow, the truth comes out, and nothing will be the same." The next morning, I saw Aaron pacing in the living room, muttering to himself. The tension was thick, almost tangible, and I could feel my own pulse quicken. Today was the day I would force him to reveal more. I started casually. "You seem tense. Did something happen at work?" He shook his head, but his eyes darted nervously to the corner where I was pretending to tidy up. I decided to push harder. "Funny, I saw a note this morning that mentioned a meeting I wasn't supposed to know about. Can you tell me what it's about?" I kept my voice calm, even teasing. Aaron stammered, avoided eye contact, then gave a half-lie, clearly testing my reaction. I smiled inwardly. He was slipping, exactly how I wanted. Later, I checked my hidden recording. He had admitted something crucial in his nervous mumbling. Every day, he fell further into my trap, and I could see the tension building in him. By nightfall, I whispered to myself, "Just a few more cracks, and the whole truth will spill." "Keep watching. audience, hit like, comment, and subscribe. You don't want to miss this. That evening, I received a surprising text from an unknown number. He's planning something tonight. Be ready. My heart raced. The pieces were finally converging. Aaron returned later, smiling nervously. He had no idea that I knew about his secret plan. I waited until he thought I was asleep, then followed him silently. He entered the study and whispered to someone on the phone. I recognized the voice. It was his sister. The words sent chills down my spine. Tonight, I'll finally tell her that I stayed hidden, my mind racing. Every second, I recorded, memorized, and planned my next move. This was the climax of my patient investigation. By the time he hung up, I had everything I needed. His double life was about to collapse in front of him, and he had no idea who held the power now. The thrill of control, the anticipation of truth, it was intoxicating. And I knew the next confrontation would be unforgettable. The following morning, I confronted him subtly. Funny how things come up unexpectedly. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? I said, letting my gaze linger on him. He flinched but tried to act normal. I smiled. You know, I think it's time we talked about some secrets. I've seen enough to know you're hiding something serious. Aaron tried to deny it, but small slips betrayed him. I could feel the tension building, like a tightrope about to snap. Each word I spoke made him squirm more. Later, I found another hidden folder in his drawer, revealing even deeper secrets. Money, plans, and lies. The truth was larger than I expected, and my resolve strengthened. By evening, I knew the final chapters of his story were close. He had underestimated me at every turn, and I was ready to finish the game. I planned a dinner that evening. I invited him, casually acting normal, but every detail was designed to make him confess. I set the table, dimmed the lights, and kept the atmosphere tense yet calm. Over dinner, I casually mentioned small pieces of evidence, observing his reactions. Sweat formed on his brow, hands fidgeted, and his voice wavered. Finally, I dropped the hint about the meeting he had planned with his sister. His fork clattered against his plate. Panic flashed in his eyes. You didn't think I'd find out? I asked softly, leaning forward. His lips trembled as he tried to speak, and I held up a finger. Silence. By the end of dinner, he had revealed more than I expected, enough to piece together the entire story. And yet I wasn't done. The ultimate reveal was still coming. After dinner, I retreated to my room, phone in hand, and spoke to the camera. If you thought this was wild, wait until you see what happens next. Like, comment, and subscribe because you won't believe the twist coming. Aaron wandered into the room, nervous. I confronted him directly. I know everything. Tonight it ends. You can either tell the truth, or watch me uncover it piece by piece. His face paled. He realized the game had shifted entirely. Every lie, every secret, every manipulation, it was all laid bare in front of me. He tried to speak, but I held up my hand. Not yet. First, you need to confess everything to me. And then you'll see what consequences look like. By midnight, I had him cornered emotionally, psychologically, and with proof. The roller coaster was reaching its peak. The night would decide everything. Midnight felt heavy, almost alive with tension. I had Aaron cornered in the living room. Evidence sprawled across the table. He was pale, his confident facade shattered. I'm listening, I said calmly, though my heart hammered. Everything. Every secret, every plan. Tonight it all comes out. His voice quivered. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I saw him wrestle with fear and shame. He had no idea the depth of what I knew. I let him sweat for a moment longer, watching the panic grow. Then I dropped the first bombshell. You whispered to your sister about leaving me. You thought I wouldn't hear it, but I did. Aaron's knees buckled slightly. I was scared. I thought, he stammered, but I cut him off. Save it. Start from the beginning. Every lie, every secret. I grabbed my phone and hit record. The raw, unfiltered truth was coming, and I knew it would shock everyone who watched. Like, comment, and subscribe now, because this is the part you'll never forget. He spilled everything. His doubts, secret meetings, and the plan he thought would protect him. His sister's role, the hidden calls, even the manipulations I hadn't expected. I stayed silent, letting the confession flow. Each revelation stung, but it also gave me power. I could feel the weight of his guilt crush him, and my resolve solidify. "You lied for months," I whispered. Every smile, every promise fabricated. He nodded miserably. I saw the man I thought I knew crumble in front of me. Then came a twist I didn't anticipate. He claimed someone else had influenced his decisions. Someone from my circle. Shock raced through me. I had to stay calm, dissect every word carefully. By 3 a.m., the room was thick with tension. I knew the climax of his confrontation was close. And when it came, it would change everything. I laid out the final proof. Messages, recordings, and hidden files. His face drained of color. "You," he whispered. "How did you?" I smiled faintly. "Patience, observation, and a little strategy. You underestimated me, and tonight you've learned why." Aaron tried to justify his actions, but each excuse fell flat against the mountain of truth. I gave him one last chance. Confess publicly or face the fallout alone. He hesitated, eyes darting, desperation in his every movement. Finally, he nodded. I confess. Everything. Relief, satisfaction, and vindication surged through me. I knew that the roller coaster wasn't just his. It was ours, the viewers, riding every twist. Morning came. I had recorded the confession in full, edited carefully, and prepared to release it. The suspense, the shock, the betrayal, it was all laid bare for everyone to see. I uploaded the video and watched the notifications explode. Comments, shares, and messages poured in. People were captivated, shocked, and enthralled by the truth. Aaron's world crumbled quietly. He avoided me, knowing I held all the cards. Meanwhile, I felt calm, empowered, and in control. My patience, planning, and strategy had paid off. The final twist. Aaron's sister tried to intervene, but I had anticipated it. I sent her away with a firm, polite warning. No loose ends could remain. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. You won't want to miss the final lessons of this story. By the end of the week, the fallout was complete. Aaron's duplicity was exposed, his plans ruined. I remained strong, calm, and unshaken. I reflected on everything, the betrayals, the lies, the suspenseful nights. Each step had taught me patience, strategy, and the power of observation. The roller coaster of emotions was over, but the lessons stayed. I felt stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. As I spoke to the camera one last time, I said, "Thank you for following this journey. Like, comment, and subscribe. Share your thoughts. Remember, power isn't cruelty. It's strategy, patience, and knowing when to act." With that, the story closed. A tale of betrayal, revelation, and ultimate justice.